So Grant, when when it's been a long day and you want a beer,
I was gonna ask this question. Go for it.
Do you have like a I don't know. Do you drink some Three Sheeps? Do you have some other favorite craft breweries, or do you maybe just have like, a Miller Lite, a Bud Light, something domestic that you just reach for? It's easy, it's consistent. Like, what does Grant drink when it's been a long day and he feels like having a beer?
Yeah, and you can be honest here because we've talked to.
You're in a safe place. You can tell us.
Nobody's gonna hear it. What was that?
Right, exactly. No, I mean, it's all over the place. I pretty much like all forms of alcohol.
Well, you fit in very well around this.
Yeah, if I'm at a ballpark, there's just something about having, if a High Life, I can get it in old style. Yeah, it's appropriate. At home after a long day, I'm usually reaching for either a Pilsner, a Juicy Pale, something low ABV, refreshing, that sort of thing. Whether it's ours or someone else's. Normally, the cheapest beers I can drink are ours on a weekday.
Sure.
What my fridge is stocked with. But then weekends, it's all over the board. We're good friends with those guys, Central Waters, so I enjoy a lot of, especially a lot of their stuff.
They've got some good beers too.
Their brewmaster is just putting out some incredible beers right now. Their barrel aged stuff, of course, is top notch. So they make some tasty things. Friday night typically is a wine night. My wife and I, just to get away from beer for a little bit, and huge fan of bourbon and Scotch. So I think I kind of hit every level there.
Yeah, you covered all of our habits.
Yeah, cheers to the bourbon. I just finished a little bit.
Yeah, I saw that. I had one downstairs before we were chatting, and I wasn't going to bring it up. I thought, no, that's the beer podcast.
It's more appropriately called an alcohol podcast, really. To be honest.
Yeah.
Well, there's a local. I'll tell the story, fellas. There's a local brewery here, Only Child in Gurnee, Illinois, and we were at their anniversary party, and we noticed somebody right through the middle of the tap room carrying a case of Miller Lite. Well, that's kind of interesting, right? Well, he walks it off into the back, and the owner goes into the cooler, comes out with a big old glass full of Miller Lite, and he has a Miller Lite T-shirt on.
At his own anniversary party.
At his own anniversary party. We're like...
And for context,
what's up with this?
For context, we were reading the book by Josh Knoll about Goose Island and selling out, barrel age and selling out. So we were kind of in this state of very InBev kind of thing going on. So, but yeah, sorry.
So we were just like, what is happening? So we pulled one of the taproom manager, Charlotte, aside and asked her, and she's like, it's not a big deal. Like, this is what you ask any craft brewer around. Majority of them will drink a Miller Life or a Miller High Life. And I've read other interviews, heard other interviews of other craft brewers, and almost always Miller Lite comes up. That's the one they drink when they're not drinking their own. And so that's why we asked you the question, because we were trying to see what you were going to say.
Yeah, it's right. It's that kind of double-edged sword. To me, a High Life is. I'm from Wisconsin. Before I knew craft, I knew High Life, and so there's always that place that has. The other side is, when you look at kind of like that book was, as that book stated, there's just when you look at where a lot of that money goes when you're supporting those companies, right. To the lobbying efforts, and we felt in Wisconsin, and we were actually the first brewery to fall under the new laws after Miller and others were able to kind of change them, such that we couldn't serve food, we couldn't serve wine or spirits in our tap room, right. Things like that. That all happened right before we got our licenses, and that stuff is happening in every state. There's always those battles fought. So it is that tough one. I do enjoy a good High Life. I will admit, when I think about it, it's a little tougher to swallow. But they're making good beer, and even like Goose Island, those brewers, I've known them for quite a while. They're great people. The guys who work on the floor, the social media crew, that kind of local group of Goose folk who were there before.
Yeah.
I would love to spend time with them. And then it's just when you get to their bosses that things change a little bit. You kind of see a little more businessy than brewery.
We, in our house, my wife, we definitely have Miller Lite in our house. And the way we justified it to ourselves is we spend a shit ton of money on craft beer. And so then we
Right.
spend the $14 on the case of Miller Lite. Majority of our money's going to craft beer, so we're okay with the small pittance of what we spend.
Yeah, and we see that all the time, especially up here in Wisconsin. When it first started, the brewery, we had a Walmart not too far away from our house, so it'd be fun. You'd watch people leaving there, and oftentimes they'd be leaving with their 2 cases of Busch Light or 2 cases of Miller Lite, and as the years have gone on, it's so much more often that you see them leaving with their case of Miller Lite, but also a 6-pack of craft.
Yeah.
And when we see these guys, it's kind of the same thing. And gals, I want to have 1 or 2 to enjoy, and then kind of switch over. So they're appreciating it. It's still how we want to spend our disposable income, and that's you can't judge anyone for that because we all have limits.
Right.
But it's just fun to see the appreciation getting there for the craft and understanding why those flavors are important. And you don't eat the same hamburger every day. Why have the same beer every day?
Yep. I mean, even our own Jake here didn't like stouts when we first started drinking with him.
It's true.
Yeah,
I've
we
come
pulled
a
Jake
long
into
way.
the fold here.
Yeah, he was a straight IPA dude. Really,
Yeah, he's come a long
and
way.
Coors Light.
Yeah, IPA, and then I called Coors Light my base beer, and that was that. And then otherwise than that, it was pretty much just, I don't know, maybe some gin, maybe some Gentleman Jack.
Well, yeah, it was. And my wife, you didn't even like IPAs.
No, but
Yeah, but now she'll drink. She loves every beer at this point.
I'm one of those people who can have one high ABU and then I need to switch.
Yeah.
I'm one of those
She
people.
low tolerance.
Well, yeah, I mean, you never forget your first IPA. I mean, it's such a. I mean, we're trained to not like bitter things because typically they're poison in nature. So
Yeah.
you have this IPA style, and like, what am I doing to myself? And then you kind of start to appreciate what it does to the rest of the beer, and it takes a bit of time, but yeah.
It's strange now too when I have conversations with people that don't consume very many IPAs, and they'll sip something. We'll drinking the same thing, and they'll take a sip, and to them it's very, very bitter, and to me I'm like, well, there's some bitterness there. Like
You're like, that's not bitter. What are you talking about?
yeah,
This is
but it's changed because I have such a regular consumption of that bitterness that the palate's just adjusted. Yeah, I think early on I was a big Three Floyds fan. So there was a lot of those going on.
Zombie Dust was the
I always really liked
beer
Gumball Head.
choice. Yeah.
That was a big favorite of mine. Yeah.
Yes.